I'm Dr. Orion Taraban, and this is PsycHack's Better Living Through Psychology. And the topic of today's short talk is the $50,000 beer. This is part 2 in my 3-part series on why successful men use escorts. So be sure to check out part 1 before proceeding. In the first episode, I discussed how traditional dating becomes prohibitively expensive as a function of a man's success. However, that discussion was still from an ideal perspective. All the expenses associated with dating are exacerbated when the woman in question wants to take it slow. Women, the success of this dating strategy is inversely proportional to your age. The younger you are, the slower you can take it. However, this is not a strategy that works for older women. I spoke with a woman in her early 50s recently who had 2 kids by 2 previous marriages and who told me that she wasn't willing to have sex before marriage with any man she is currently dating. You can't make this up. As may be unsurprising, she has been single for quite some time. I spoke with another woman recently, she was 41, who was looking to get married and start a family. She told me that she blamed her inability to have secured this relationship already on the fact that in the past, she jumped into bed with men too quickly. I assured her this was not the problem. Women should be very sexually generous with the men they're hoping to catch. The problem was not what she was doing. The problem was who she was doing it with. As I've said before, women do the right things with the wrong men. But rather than examine her tendency of targeting the wrong men, she decided to shoot herself in the foot by making a relationship with her even more expensive than it otherwise would have been by making men wait longer for sex. Now she wouldn't sleep with a man until at least the 3rd date. What women need to understand is that expecting time and attention and emotion and provision without providing sex in return is an extremely one-sided and expensive proposition in the dating game. It's the gendered equivalent of a man inviting you over for sex and then kicking you out when he's finished. It's one side getting what it wants at the expense of the other. More structured women, like these 2, have rules about how the dating process needs to proceed before they participate in the sexual dimension of the relationship. In most cases, these women are not worth dating. They're just too expensive. And if they're too expensive for the average guy, they are absolutely exorbitant for the successful one. Think about it. If a woman won't sleep with a man until the 3rd date as a rule, then at $5,200 a date, that amounts to $15,600 for a sexual encounter. If the encounter actually occurs. After all, there's no guarantee that the woman won't change her mind or feel there isn't sufficient chemistry at any point in the process. And I would like women to consider that $15,000 is an inordinate amount of money to spend to get to know you. Like, would you give up $15,000 to go on 3 dates with a man, especially if the dates didn't actually involve the thing you might most be looking for? I don't think you would. And that's why these successful men aren't going to date structured women or are very quickly going to be looking for the door if these women try to make them jump through hoops. They're not toxic players as much as they are not looking to throw 5 figures of money away on an unsatisfying interaction. Their decision has less to do with their personalities and more to do with the economic realities under which they are operating. Women, if you make men wait, you will end up with the men with time on their hands. Think about it. What kind of man is going to wait around to see if a given woman thinks he's good enough to sleep with? I'll help you out. It ain't gonna be the attractive men with lots of options who already know their worth. If you are fortunate enough to find yourself on a date with one of these individuals, and you are receiving the undivided attention of a high-value man who is showing you sexual interest, it is not the time to play hard to get. You have been given an opportunity that may never come again. You need to act fast, and you need to give them the richest creamiest milk you possibly can. Let's look at this from another angle, shall we? Why aren't there female 9s and 10s on dating apps? I hear men complain all the time about the apparent attractiveness of the women they encounter on apps. But my brothers in Christ, of course, you're not going to find super beautiful women on dating apps. These women, like the super successful men, don't date conventionally. And they don't date conventionally for the exact same reason. It's far too expensive. Imagine you're a world-class beauty. You're getting DM'd hundreds or thousands of times a day. Some Saudi prince is inviting you out to a 7-star resort in Dubai. An NFL player wants to give you tickets to his next game in a private box on the 50-yard line. Some rising movie star wants you to join him on location in Tahiti. What are the chances, in the midst of all these options and invitations, that you're going to spend Saturday night having a beer in a local dive bar with a random nobody? The odds that you would do that are absolutely non-existent. And they're non-existent not because you're just a shallow and materialistic gold digger, but because that beer just became extraordinarily expensive. From the nobody's perspective, the beer only costs $10. But from your perspective, the world-class beauty, it costs an all-expense paid vacation to the Burj Dubai. To her, that is a $50,000 beer. And guess what? No fucking beer is worth $50,000. When you are a world-class beauty, it's too expensive to date conventionally. The same is true when you are a very successful man. But here's the difference. A decently attractive man could never, ever engage a world-class beauty. Dudes, just try DMing a smoke show with 2 million Instagram followers. You will never, ever get a response beyond her auto reply. However, a decently attractive woman could engage a very successful man. She can just slide into his DMs and make herself available. This doesn't always work, obviously, but it absolutely has a non-zero chance of succeeding. If you find yourself on a date with one of these men, do not waste the opportunity. It's kind of like finding yourself alone in an elevator with Elon Musk. You have 30 seconds to cultivate interest, or you probably blew it forever. Fortune favors the prepared. Wait for your moment and pounce when it appears. So let's recap. The more successful a man is, the more expensive traditional dating becomes. These men have to spend time and energy finding women, cultivating interest, planning dates, covering expenses, stimulating arousal, and, most significant of all, waiting. What's more, all this occurs without any reasonable guarantee of a sexual encounter or even mutual interest. Most dates are first dates. This means that, all other things being equal, the most likely outcome is the man having paid a sizable amount of money to feel frustrated and disappointed at the end of the night. In the context of limited free time and emotional bandwidth, these probabilities become even more unattractive. Most likely, he will eventually come to the decision that he would rather use that time and energy earning more money, or improving his fitness, or playing video games, or literally any other activity that reasonably promises a greater return on his investment of time. Like the beautiful woman, he will conclude that no beer is worth $50,000. Now, before I go any further, if you're liking what you're hearing, please consider sending this episode to someone who might benefit from its message, because it's word-of-mouth referrals like this that really help to make the channel grow. You can also hit the thanks button and tip me in proportion to the value you feel you've derived from this episode. I'm proud to announce that my book, The Value of Others, is now available for pre-sale on Amazon. It'll be released in just a few days. So take action now to get your hands on it as soon as possible. I'm also writing original content for my free newsletter every week. So if you'd like to sign up, you can do so on my website. Finally, please fill out an inquiry form on my website if you're interested in booking a paid consultation. The links to everything I just discussed is in the description below, so please check them out. All right, let's get back to it. Provided we can move past our reactive judgment, we're now well positioned to understand why successful men use escorts. Not only is hiring escorts less expensive than dating traditionally, but doing so solves nearly every problem that a successful man encounters in the modern dating pool. And regardless of who you are, man or woman, young or old, gay or straight, an option that solves more of your problems for fewer resources will always be preferable to an option that solves fewer of your problems for more. Apparently, the average rate for an hour of sex with a female sex worker in the United States is $250, citation below. To put that in perspective, that hour of sex is comparable to 11 and a half minutes of that corporate lawyer's time at $1,300 an hour. However, this is just an average rate for sex. In major cities, a high-priced call girl will cost around $1,000 an hour. Now, to an average guy, this is a lot of money. Most men do not have $1,000 to spend on an hour of pleasure. They think this call girl is expensive. However, to a successful man, this is a bargain. Not only is he still coming out ahead in the head-to-head comparison on the value of their respective time, he only has to work 45 minutes to purchase 60 minutes of her time, but relative to the traditional dating model previously discussed, he may have potentially saved $15,000 worth of time for $1,000 worth of cash. From a certain perspective, he's stealing from himself by not using escorts. This thinking highlights the differences between scarcity and abundance mentality. So let me pause here to explain this further. When I first moved to San Francisco, I lived in a shared house with a Craigslist roommate, and we would get into some disagreements about cleaning the house. The woman I was living with wasn't doing so well. She wasn't thriving in life, and she didn't have a lot of money. On the other hand, my test prep business was catching fire, and I was using almost every hour I could spare to provide lessons to my students. As a consequence, I wanted to hire someone to clean the common areas of the house. If cleaning the house required 2 hours a month, I would rather pay someone $200 to allow me the opportunity to earn $500. It was too expensive for me not to delegate, as I would be functionally stealing $300 from myself to do the same job less well. My roommate, on the other hand, did not have $200 to spend. She thought she was saving $200 by cleaning the house herself. And here's the thing. We were both right. Within our respective perspectives and economic realities, each of us was making the rational choice. Now, if you don't have $200 to spend, you don't have $200 to spend. But the issue is that scarcity mentality can keep people trapped in scarcity longer than they need to be. At a certain point, an individual's time always becomes more valuable than his or her money. This is true of everyone, though it will occur at different rates depending on the value of the individual's time in the commercial marketplace. People with scarcity mentality count the dollars they spend and track the dollars they save by doing it themselves. On the other hand, people with abundance mentality count the hours they spend and track the dollars they save by delegating to others. And this, of course, is a virtuous cycle. The more you delegate, the more you free up time to earn even more, to delegate even further. That's how you take your time back and increase your earning potential. A successful man who uses escorts is effectively delegating his time to a professional rather than doing it himself. And he saves a considerable amount of resources by doing so. Most women do not understand how much time, energy, and money men spend trying to get laid. Even in their relationships. If we liberated that time, we would increase the GDP by billions of dollars overnight. For better or worse, getting and maintaining women is one of the single greatest expenses incurred by men on this planet. And romantic relationships are one of the largest resource redistribution schemes the world has ever seen. For men, it's almost always cheaper to be single, and for women, it's almost always cheaper to be in a relationship. That said, I've found that most men actually aren't that miffed about paying. probably because they've never even considered there might be another option. They just want a fair deal. The issue is that deal becomes less fair as the man becomes more successful. And this is less the consequence of the woman's entitlement, as some men might argue, and more a consequence of the man's success. So not only is hiring an escort, even a high-priced one, significantly less expensive to successful men than dating an average girl, the escort solves a bunch of other problems that are subject to arising in traditional dating. This man does not have to spend time swiping or approaching women, and he does not have to deal with the rejection and frustration that inevitably attend those activities. He does not have to spend hours or days texting back and forth to generate interest. He does not have to plan a date and make the woman feel heard and make the woman feel safe and make the woman feel aroused. He doesn't have to wait days or weeks for the woman in question to make herself available. And he is absolutely guaranteed of a sexual encounter if he so desires one. What's more, and this might rub folks the wrong way, but that high-priced escort is probably more attractive than the average woman on a dating app. At the very least, a man who hires an escort generally selects the one who is most attractive to him from among the available options. This is a very uncommon experience for men. The fact of the matter is that it's much easier for women to get what they want, at least sexually. Why? Because most men will have sex with most women, but most women will not have sex with most men. This means that women can kind of get what they want sexually, while men typically have to settle for what wants them. But that dynamic is reversed when a man uses a prostitute. In this situation, the man ends up with the best he can get, as opposed to the best who will have him. The experience is also delivered to him at his convenience, when he wants it, where he wants it, how he wants it, and he can terminate the relationship at his pleasure at any time with no consequences. In almost every possible way, when a successful man hires an escort, he gets more of what he wants and less of what he doesn't, far more cheaply relative to dating on the open market. Successful men don't date for the same reason very attractive women don't. They both have to pay much more for much less. Just keeping it real with you. What do you think? Does this fit with your own experience? Let me know in the comments below. As always, I appreciate your support, and thank you for listening.